That night Julia Roberts wasn't allowed into the VIP lounge. She left quietly. 5 minutes later, when the phone rang, everyone in that lounge lost their jobs. The Peninsula Hotel, Beverly Hills. A charity gala benefiting children's hospitals across California. The kind of event where ticket prices started at $5,000 and the guest list read like an Academy Award seating chart. Black tie. Champagne. Photographers clustered outside like starlings. Julia Roberts arrived at 8:47 p.m. Not in a limousine. Not with an entourage. She'd driven herself in a 10-year-old Volvo and parked in the public garage 3 blocks away because the valet line was backed up and she didn't want to wait. She wore a simple navy dress, elegant but not flashy, the kind of thing that costs less than what some guests spent on shoes. No jewelry except her wedding ring. Hair pulled back. Minimal makeup. She looked like someone who had come to do a job, not to be seen. She walked through the hotel lobby alone, following the signs toward the Constellation Ballroom where the gala was being held. Her phone buzzed. A text from her assistant. VIP holding room is on the 3rd floor. Take the private elevator. They're expecting you. Julia had been invited to present an award tonight, Outstanding Advocate for Pediatric Care. She'd said yes because the organization mattered to her, because she'd spent years quietly visiting children's hospitals when cameras weren't around, because this wasn't about her image, but about the nurses and doctors who showed up every day for kids who needed them. She found the private elevator. Rode it to the 3rd floor. The doors opened onto a carpeted hallway with soft amber lighting and that particular hushed quality that expensive hotels cultivate. Ahead, she could see frosted glass doors with gold handles. A small reception desk. A velvet rope. The subtle glow of the VIP lounge beyond. A man in a black suit stood at the entrance. Mid-40s. Name badge that read, Richard Chin, Guest Relations Manager. Clipboard in hand. That specific expression of polite authority that comes from years of deciding who belongs and who doesn't. Julia approached with a small smile. Hi. Julia Roberts. I'm presenting tonight. Do you have your VIP credentials? Richard's voice was professional but cool. His eyes had already scanned her dress, her lack of jewelry, the simple fabric wristband she wore on her right wrist. Julia glanced down at the wristband. It was pale blue. Fabric. The kind of thing they give you at hospital charity events to show you've donated. She'd gotten it 2 weeks ago at a smaller fundraiser and never taken it off. I don't think I was sent credentials, Julia said. My assistant said I was expected. Everyone on the VIP list receives credentials. Richard's tone had shifted slightly. Less professional. More dismissive. If you don't have them, I'll need to verify your registration. He was looking at her like she was lying. Like she was someone trying to sneak into a party she didn't belong at. Julia felt something cold settle in her chest. Not anger. Recognition. She'd seen this look before. The look that said your face doesn't match what I expected. The look that said you're not dressed right. The look that said I don't believe you. I can call my assistant, Julia offered quietly. Or the event coordinator. I'm sure there's just been a mix-up. Ma'am, the lounge is at capacity and we have very strict protocols. Richard's hand moved subtly to block the entrance more completely. If you're not on the verified list with proper credentials, I cannot allow access. You're welcome to check in at the main ballroom registration. Behind him, through the frosted glass, Julia could see figures moving. Guests in the VIP lounge. Drinking. Laughing. Waiting in comfort before the event started. She could hear the muffled sound of conversation and soft jazz. She looked at Richard. At his name badge. At the clipboard he held like a shield. At the way he positioned his body to make it clear she was not getting past him. Julia didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. Okay, she said simply. She held up her wrist, showing him the pale blue fabric band. This is from the pediatric fundraiser 2 weeks ago. I kept it on because it reminds me why I'm here. But I understand you have protocols. Richard's expression didn't change. He'd already decided she was a problem to be managed. Thank you for understanding, he said, his tone making it clear the conversation was over. Julia nodded once, turned, and walked back toward the elevator. She didn't argue. Didn't demand to speak to a manager. Didn't pull out her phone to prove who she was. She just left. Richard watched her go with satisfaction. Another potential problem handled smoothly. He turned back to his post, made a note on his clipboard, and resumed his position guarding the VIP lounge entrance. 4 minutes and 30 seconds later, his phone rang. The caller ID showed it was Linda Hartwell, the hotel's director of events. Richard answered with professional confidence. Guest relations, this is Richard. Linda's voice came through the line, tight and furious. Did you just turn away Julia Roberts from the VIP lounge? Richard's stomach dropped. There was a woman without credentials. She didn't have. Julia Roberts. The Julia Roberts. Presenting the main award tonight. The woman whose name is literally on the event program. Did you turn her away? The hallway seemed to tilt. Richard gripped his clipboard. She didn't have VIP credentials. She was wearing some kind of charity bracelet. She didn't look. Didn't look like what, Richard? Linda's voice was ice. Didn't look expensive enough for you? Didn't match your mental image of what a movie star should be? I was following protocol. You were supposed to verify anyone uncertain, not turn them away. She gave you her name. You could have made one phone call. One. Instead, you sent her to the main registration like she was crashing the party. Through the phone, Richard could hear other voices in the background. Urgent. Angry. Someone was saying, "Find her. Now. Linda, I can fix this." You can't fix anything. Julia Roberts just called the event coordinator from the parking garage. She's leaving. She's not presenting the award. She's not staying for the gala. Because you decided she didn't belong. Richard felt his face go numb. I'll apologize. I'll go down right now. You'll do nothing. You're done. Security will escort you out in 10 minutes. Your supervisor is being notified. Everyone who was in that lounge when you turned her away, your entire team, is being replaced tonight. That's not fair. Fair? Linda's voice cracked. Julia Roberts has donated over $2 million to this organization. She visits children's hospitals every month without publicity. She agreed to present tonight as a personal favor. And you treated her like she was trying to sneak into a club. The line went quiet for a moment. When Linda spoke again, her voice was steady but final. You saw a woman in a simple dress with a hospital charity bracelet and decided she wasn't important enough for the VIP lounge. That tells me everything I need to know about your judgment. You're finished. The call ended. Richard stood in the hallway, phone in hand, the muffled sounds of the VIP lounge behind him still playing jazz and laughter. In 30 seconds his career had ended. Not because he'd broken a rule. Because he'd failed to see what mattered. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most important part of this story is still unfolding. To understand what happened next, you need to understand who Julia Roberts actually was that night. Not the movie star. Not the icon. The person. Julia Roberts had been visiting children's hospitals since 1993. Not for photo ops. Not for publicity. She did it the way some people volunteer at soup kitchens or mentor students. Because it mattered, because she could, because those kids deserved to feel special even if only for an afternoon. She'd learned early that showing up in full celebrity mode, hair, makeup, designer clothes, made the visits about her. The kids would get nervous. The staff would treat her like a guest instead of a volunteer. So she'd started coming in jeans and a t-shirt. Hair in a ponytail. No makeup. Just Julia, sitting on hospital beds reading stories, playing card games, listening to kids talk about their fears and their favorite movies and whether they thought superheroes were real. The pale blue fabric bracelet Richard had dismissed. It was from St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. A 12-year-old named Marcus had tied it on her wrist himself, his hands shaking from chemotherapy, his smile huge when she'd promised to wear it until his next treatment was finished. Marcus had finished that treatment 3 days ago. Successfully. Julia had gotten the text from his mother that afternoon. She'd kept the bracelet on as a reminder. As a promise kept. And Richardson had looked at it and seen proof she didn't belong. Julia had walked back to the elevator calmly because she'd learned a long time ago that some battles aren't worth fighting. She'd gotten into her Volvo in the parking garage and sat in the driver's seat for a minute, her hands on the steering wheel, breathing slowly. She wasn't angry. She was tired. Tired of people who saw her as a commodity. Tired of being evaluated based on how much she sparkled. Tired of knowing that if she'd shown up in diamonds and a limo, Richard would have fallen over himself to open that door. She'd pulled out her phone and called Caroline Reeves, the event coordinator. "Caroline, hi. It's Julia. I'm not going to be able to make it tonight." Caroline had panicked. "What?" "Julia, you're presenting in 45 minutes. "I know. I'm sorry. Something came up. I'll send my donation directly to the hospital. Please apologize to everyone for me." She'd ended the call before Caroline could ask questions. Then she'd started her car and driven home. She didn't tell anyone what happened. Didn't post about it. Didn't call her publicist. She just went home, changed into comfortable clothes, and spent the evening reading the new book Marcus had recommended to her in his last letter. It was Caroline who'd figured it out. When Julia hung up, Caroline had immediately called Linda Hartwell at the hotel. "Julia Roberts just cancelled. Something's wrong." She sounded off. Linda had felt ice in her stomach. She'd grabbed her phone and called down to the VIP lounge entrance. "Richard, did anyone come through there in the last 10 minutes? Anyone you might have turned away?" The pause before Richard answered told her everything. The next 5 minutes had been chaos. Linda calling Richard back. Richard's career ending. Linda alerting hotel management. The VIP lounge team being notified they were being replaced. Security being dispatched to escort Richard and his staff out. But the real story, the one that would circulate through the hotel industry for years, wasn't about Richard getting fired. It was about what happened to the people in that VIP lounge. Away from the cameras, decisions were being made that would echo for years. Inside the VIP lounge, 37 guests were waiting for the gala to begin. Actors, producers, studio executives, wealthy donors. The kind of people who expected VIP treatment because they'd become accustomed to being treated as very important. None of them knew Julia Roberts had been turned away 10 feet from where they sat drinking champagne. At 9:02 p.m., Linda Hartwell walked into the lounge. She was flanked by hotel security and the event's head coordinator. Her face was composed but her hands were shaking slightly. "Excuse me," she said, her voice cutting through the conversation. "I need everyone's attention." The lounge went quiet. 15 minutes ago, Julia Roberts was denied entry to this lounge by our guest relations team. She was told she didn't have proper credentials. She left the hotel. She will not be presenting tonight's main award. She will not be attending this event. A ripple of shock moved through the room. Someone gasped. A producer set down his glass. Linda continued, her voice steady. She was wearing a hospital charity bracelet. A simple dress. No jewelry. And she was judged as not belonging here. By the staff we hired to represent this hotel. On a night meant to honor people who serve children. She paused, letting that sink in. The guest relations team has been terminated. But I want everyone in this room to understand something. Julia Roberts has given more to this cause, in time, in money, in actual presence with sick children, than everyone in this lounge combined. And we turned her away because she didn't look like what we expected. The silence was absolute. She didn't demand to see a manager. She didn't threaten anyone. She just left. Because she's spent her entire career proving she doesn't need to prove anything. Linda turned to leave, then stopped. The award she was going to present tonight? It's named after a nurse who worked 40 years in pediatric oncology. A woman who showed up every day in scrubs, no makeup, no recognition. Julia wore a simple dress to honor that. And we failed to see it. But what followed stayed with everyone who witnessed it, forever. The gala continued. The award was presented by someone else. But something had changed in that room. 3 of the producers in the VIP lounge quietly left and drove to Julia's house. They apologized on her doorstep. She invited them in for tea and they talked for 2 hours about what really matters. One of them funded a new pediatric wing the following year. In Julia's name. She asked them to use the nurse's name instead. Richard Chen never worked in hospitality again. But 5 years later, he sent Julia a letter. He'd started volunteering at a children's hospital, teaching kids art therapy. He wrote, "You taught me that I was guarding the wrong door." Julia never responded. But she kept the letter in her desk drawer, next to Marcus's blue bracelet. Share and subscribe. Some stories deserve to be remembered.